Um, just waiting for people to join in. Hi. So
Hello.
we'll just wait for another minute. We'll just get everyone to
Mm-hmm.
join back, and then we'll continue with alignment. Um, So for those who are just joining in for the first time, if you are, this is the session on body kinetics and injury prevention. We've had some really unbelievable insights that Sneha has given us over the last hour. If you missed the previous part of the session, that's going to be available on the story, on my stories for the next 24 hours. Um, and yeah, so we're going to continue from where we left. We're just waiting. I think people are just joining in. Um, but yeah, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Sneha, for doing this. Is such an insightful session for
Thank
us
you for
all.
having me. Thank you.
Really, I'll do the thank you bit later, but yeah, it's been such a revelation. Honestly, it's so many things which I thought I was doing right, or I thought this is the way to do it, but and this is the
Mm.
way it's taught also. Whatever we've learned, whether it's from directly from our teachers or whether it's something that we've just, as you said, there's so much of information available, so you see and you
Mm.
learn online. But anatomy is something I've never really paid attention to, and it's great that you're opening our eyes literally towards
Yeah. And
how
I
we
think you
should.
can do um, professional development, as part of a professional development, that you look into the anatomy, the dance psychology, dance nutrition, and all that sort of stuff, because it's really important for all of us to know that. I'm getting a bit of an echo. I can kind of hear myself.
Oh yeah, I'll just as well. I'll have to disconnect and okay, now better now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So we've just turned off comments. We'll continue now, and just once we're done with,
Mm.
I just have a couple more questions after this. Once we're done, we'll take questions from everyone who's watching. So yeah, so we were discussing alignment.
Yeah. So we talked about the RMNE, the feet, and the weight
Hmm.
distribution.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now the other thing I wanted to show you was the exercise to try and
Hmm.
get that in the mind
Hmm.
to do that every time you go into RMNE. So
Hmm.
I'll just
Hmm.
tilt the camera down so we can start
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Okay, so what you want to start with is have a chair or something next to you just for
Hmm.
balance
Hmm.
purpose. So you
Yeah.
have your feet in Samapada, and you're going
Hmm.
to physically rock yourself back onto your heels because you're forcing your heels to take your weight first.
Okay.
Okay?
Sneha, I think we're not able to see your feet. Maybe you'll have to push the
Okay.
camera a little lower. Yeah. Now we can see the mat. Yeah.
Now?
No, it's
Still
coming
not?
where the comments and all is. So maybe you'll have to like tilt it a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that should be good. Yeah.
I wonder if this will work.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, I think we can do with this. Yeah.
Okay, so you're basically onto your heels.
Hmm.
So you lift your
Okay.
toes up, and then
Okay.
what you're doing is you're going to feel for, you put one hand here and one hand
Uh-huh.
where the external rotators were, right?
Okay.
So you
Yeah.
put your weight back, and this exercise is to try and get you to switch off this one and to switch on this.
Hmm.
So you
Right.
slowly rotate and see, okay, no, not yet because I'm still using this. You want
Hmm.
to keep doing until you feel this activate to get your leg out.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then same thing on the other side also. You feel the
Right.
external
Hmm.
rotator work and then turn your feet out. Are you able to see the
Yeah.
feet?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So then this should be it. What you'll see dancers do is often push a little bit more to
Correct.
try and get
Correct.
that perfect 180, right?
Turn out.
But
Yeah.
if
Right.
everyone is different. So this is all
Yeah.
that I'm able to do. So
Yeah.
now
Okay.
I
Hmm.
have to be conscious of the next part of the
Hmm.
exercise is to be conscious of the weight distribution. So I have
Hmm.
to physically put more weight through my heels and
Mm-hmm.
equal pressure through my big toe and my little toe
Mm-hmm.
on both sides. So
Okay.
now before I sit into Aryamandi, pretend that you have to grow 2 centimeters taller. So you're going to pretty much grow
Okay.
yourself upwards. And then
Right.
as you sit into Aryamandi, then you're going to keep thinking about growing tall.
Right. Right.
Okay. So this is
Yeah.
important because that ensures that the weight is still equally distributed.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All
And
right.
so
Okay.
now naturally when you're dancing, you'll have your foot will be within your toes as well. It
Correct.
will not
Also.
fall
Right.
like past. So it's also not
Yeah.
about getting this depth. If you want
Correct.
more depth, now you know you have to, like for
Hmm.
myself, I need to
Hmm.
work on my turnout.
Hmm. Hmm.
I cannot wriggle myself and then go
Right.
more.
Right.
So now you've identified where your problem is. So now you
Yeah.
work on the correct muscles to help you get whether it's more this
Better
way or
turnout.
more,
Yeah.
yeah, depth or
Yeah.
whichever.
Downwards. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing is now when I do like a jump like
Hmm.
this,
Hmm.
uh, foot control is really important.
Hmm.
So,
If you can just, as we're showing that, just before we go on to the next one, this external
mm,
rotators that you spoke about,
yeah.
if you can just tell us what the external rotator is again. I know you're just indicating some part in your back,
Mm.
the lower back. So can you just like tell us what exactly we should feel for when you say external rotator?
Okay, so if you think of inner garments, when you wear your inner garments, the line which comes just on top of that is usually where the external rotators sit.
Ah, okay, got it. Okay, all right,
Quite
got it.
deep. So if you're
Yeah,
pressing, it should be in
yeah,
that area. You should press
yeah,
hard because
yeah.
it's a deep structure. So when
Okay,
you
got it,
turn
got it.
and you do that exercise, you'll feel that that is the one that goes first, not here.
Got it. Okay,
So
okay.
that's what you're
Yeah,
feeling for. Yeah?
got it. Okay, got it. Yeah, got it.
Okay, so now I'm
Yeah,
doing this Adavu.
yeah.
Are you able to see the feet?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So foot control is really important in this
Hmm,
because
hmm.
we have our foot arch, right? The arch
Correct.
of our foot, we always have to make sure it's active. So you have to
Hmm,
kind of tuck in all of your muscles in the underfoot. And
hmm,
as you jump, it's
hmm,
important that you don't
hmm.
roll your foot and land. So that arch
Okay,
has to be maintained as you jump and land.
okay.
Because otherwise, if I land like this and my foot is rolling forward,
Ah,
then my knees are also going to roll forward.
okay.
So
All
this is
right.
how you hurt your knees. So you have to
Right.
keep that arch engaged so the weight is still distributed. So these are
Hmm.
some of the
Okay.
alignment tips that or things that you have to
Yeah.
be aware of.
Yeah. I think especially the Aramandi one is such a uh, revelation for me as well because as you said, I mean I'm guilty of doing most of the mistakes that most people do, which is as you said, going for more turnout and then trying to just push down so that you can sit more so that it looks. But the problem is not many of us, me included, are okay with this, with accepting how much Aramandi we can go into. We always
Yeah.
want to get that perfect turnout, that perfect 180 plus that actual Aramandi. So it's
Mm,
also largely to do with conditioning the mind to be okay with how much we can do. And I think
yeah.
that's the first step. Yeah.
But
And this is,
also
I'm
part
speaking
of
for
it is
myself as
that,
well. Hmm.
yeah, but part of that
Hmm.
is also like um, not like you have to work with your body. It's not that that is your
Right.
capacity. See, that exercise was
Correct.
just to show you which muscle to activate. Because if you use the hip flexor to
Correct.
turn out, then we'll
Correct.
often say
Correct.
that the front of the hip is hurting. Why is it hurting? Because you're
Right.
using the wrong muscle, right?
I
So it's
think I'm facing
overused,
that as well. For the last 4 days, I've not danced because of the same reason. In my right leg, I
right?
feel this, yeah, so I'm guilty of that as well. Hmm.
So the muscle which you're using, you're overusing it. So often
Hmm.
that's the problem. It's
Right.
not usually like there's a hip impingement or something restricting there. It's just the
Correct.
wrong muscle that's being used.
Wrong
So
muscle.
that
Yeah.
exercise was just to make sure you're firing the right muscle, which is at the back, and
Correct.
also getting the brain to understand that now the more times you do it, every time you go into RMND, that you
Hmm.
don't have to do that exercise, but it will just come.
Correct.
And you
Correct.
also know from that, like you could see what my turnout was, which was shocking. So
Hmm.
my turnout, now I know what I have to work on,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I can't just pull it out and sit and say I'm going to
Sit.
dance because I'm going to hurt myself.
Yeah. And even if you don't, realize it now, 10, 15 years down the line when you're doing the wrong thing, it's just going to just end up being so bad. So longevity is
Exactly.
another thing that we have to
Yeah.
think about, which most of us don't. I mean, it's
Yeah.
about, getting through it now, which, and it's possible because
Mm.
when you're young, you recover faster and you're able to
Mm.
push yourself harder than you should be. But
Mm.
eventually it's going to give way. So that's something that we all have to also think about.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there's another important thing, after alignment that I wanted to speak about, which is the core, because that's the first thing that we talk about, not just in dance, but in any form of exercise or athletics. We always talk about, keep your core strong, keep your core strong. So,
Mm.
why is the core so important? What is it about the core that's really gotten all of us so obsessed with the word core?
Yeah, definitely an obsession. It's
Yeah,
partly good to see that there's
good.
awareness,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
awareness exists because it's important.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I think before we get into talking about this, we almost
Mm.
have to unlearn everything that we know so far about the core.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm.
even though there's so much awareness,
Mm.
I wouldn't say it's as accurate as it should be, whatever we know
Okay,
about the core. So
okay.
firstly, we'll talk about what the core is not. It's not a six
Yeah.
pack thing. Core stability is not about holding a plank for 1 minute. It's not about doing a
Right,
hundred sit-ups. Definitely not.
right,
So it's not
right.
that.
Okay.
Also, when
Oh,
like in
again,
my
guilty. I thought
private,
if I can hold the plank for 1.5 minutes, I have good core stability.
well, no, because then
Hmm.
you can do it in that position, but how do you put that into your dancing?
Right, right.
Your
Exactly.
plank,
Yeah.
you're not in a plank position when you dance. So you have
Hmm.
good core strength, but do you have stability when you dance? Do you have the endurance when you
Correct,
dance? That's different,
correct,
right?
correct. Yeah.
So when you talk about the core, so it's not those things. It's not six pack. It's not holding a plank.
Hmm. Hmm.
Another thing is in my private appointments, a lot of people will point to their stomach and say, "This is what I think the core is. This is where the core is." That's only partly true. It's first, it's not the stomach. It's a
Correct,
lower part of the stomach, and it's a very
correct.
internal muscle, and that's only one part. So if you think of a
Hmm.
Coke can or any can of soft drink,
Hmm. Hmm.
a
Hmm.
cylinder basically,
Hmm.
that's your core. So the front is one
Hmm.
muscle, the
Hmm.
back is another muscle. So the
Hmm.
muscle in your back, your
Hmm. Hmm.
obliques in your sides are also part
Hmm.
of your core.
Right,
For the
right,
top of the can is your diaphragm, which is a breathing muscle. This is important to note that your
right,
breathing muscle has two tasks, core stability and also breathing,
right,
right?
right.
And from the bottom is supported by the pelvic floor muscles. So
Correct.
these are what make up your core.
Yeah. So it's
So
literally
it's
that
not just
whole
stomach.
part around your navel. If you can draw an
Mm,
entire, I mean, if you can consider the whole
yeah,
thing as a cylinder,
yeah,
a little above the navel, below the navel, and the whole thing around, that entire thing is the core and not just
yes.
the stomach. Okay. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you can't just tuck in your tummy and say I'm holding
Tuck.
my core. Yeah, that's
Correct.
not core. And you don't get
Correct.
any strength or stability from that. That's not how it works.
Correct.
We often say it like a corset, like a person who is wearing a tight corset that you can
Correct.
tie up. It
Correct.
should be doing the role of that, which gives you so much stability in that area that everything is
Right.
active and working well.
Right.
This is important to note because when you're moving, the core is supposed to help your spine to not collapse or move with you as you move your limbs. So it's a stable
Right.
base. So a
Right.
stable base from which your limbs are able to move,
Hmm.
right? So when you're doing like say knot tadavu, for example, you don't want your hips to be moving from side to side. You don't want your
Hmm.
weight to be shifting. So the core
Correct.
helps with that because
Okay.
it's the whole, like you said, it's the whole lumbo-pelvic region, which is your lower back, your pelvis, your
Yeah.
hip. All of that
Hmm.
is called your
Hmm.
lumbo-pelvic hip region. It's the
Right.
strength and stability throughout the whole thing.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when you're standing on one leg, that's the inner unit. We talked about the
Okay.
diaphragm, pelvic floor, and all those muscles. It's called the inner
Right.
unit of the core. So when
Right.
you're standing and you're doing your knot, you're standing on
Hmm.
one leg.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
so all of your weight is on that side.
Hmm.
So you need muscle from the outside. You need your gluteus medius. So
Okay.
glute
Hmm.
med is an important
Hmm.
muscle that works with the core when you're
Hmm.
standing on one leg.
Hmm.
So it keeps your
Okay.
pelvis in line. So this doesn't happen every time you let go
Right.
of the leg. So I'll show you
Right.
what that looks like.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing my adho,
Hmm.
like if you do that adho, you don't want the
Hmm.
hips to be moving from
Hip to
side to
move.
side.
Right.
And you
Right.
also don't want this to be happening,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
anytime
Correct.
you stand on one leg, your
Hmm.
core, which is around this entire area,
Hmm. Hmm.
is supporting you. It's allowing
Hmm.
you to release this leg without
Hmm.
excessive weight shift,
Right. Right.
right? But it
Yeah.
also takes the help of your glute med, which is the middle layer of your bum.
Correct.
It takes help from that to release the leg and then
Ah.
to put it down.
Right.
And that's how you do your Natadava.
Right.
So the other thing is, suppose you're wanting to do like a pose like this, or
Hmm.
Natraja pose.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So a lot of people, what they'll do is,
Hmm.
they'll use their hip flexor. Sorry, they won't
Hmm.
use their hip flexor. They'll tense with the quads. So they'll pull
Right.
their leg up like this, and you see
Right.
it shakes,
Ah, it's wobbly. Correct.
right? Huh. So
Correct.
the reason for that is that
Yeah.
within your core muscles,
Yeah.
you have two types of fibers: slow
Okay.
twitch fibers and fast twitch fibers.
Okay. Hmm.
So this is important. I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
So in your core are all slow twitch fibers, meaning that they're turned on for a long time. They don't fatigue
Okay.
very quickly,
Okay.
right? Your bigger moving muscles, like your quads, your thigh muscle, which produces
Right.
movement, is
Right.
a fatiguing muscle, fast twitch fiber. It
Fast twitch.
fatigues
Okay.
quickly. It does
Hmm.
the movement and then turns off, right?
Correct.
So if you're
Hmm.
wanting to do that Nataraja pose, for example,
Hmm. Hmm.
what people do is they use that quads. Your quads will
Hmm.
fatigue quickly. So even if
Hmm.
you pull it up to lift it up, you can't hold it there. So if you ever see some dancers at the end, they hold a pose for a long time,
Right.
they start
Right.
shaking because they're tensing
Shaking.
with that. So
Right.
instead, what you should be
Right.
doing,
Yeah.
your core should be active,
Hmm.
and that's the entire region. And the
Yeah.
glute medius should help you to let go of that leg. And you should
Okay.
actually be using your hip flexor. Here, you should use your hip flexor, which is at the front, because that's
Hmm.
a hip flexor. It's used to lift your leg up.
Correct.
Now, the thing with the hip flexor is it is also in common man or like everyday activities. We use it
Hmm.
as a core muscle, actually,
Hmm.
part of the
Okay.
core, right?
Okay.
We can afford to do that in everyday life because we don't stand on one leg in everyday life,
Correct. Correct.
right?
Correct.
So you can afford to use your hip flexor as a
Yeah.
core. So it
Yeah.
has those slow twitch fibers. But
Hmm.
in dance, when you are getting into a position where you're lifting up one leg, you
Hmm.
have to use the hip flexor, and you can keep the leg up there long if you use that hip flexor because it's a
Right.
core muscle. It's a slow
Right.
twitch fiber,
Correct.
right? So the
Correct. Correct.
stability of that position comes from using that muscle,
Right. And then
not
it's
the
not as
quads.
wobbly as it is, because when
Huh.
you showed us holding the tension in the quads, it's going to be wobbly because it's not supported by the
It's
core.
already
Yeah.
turned off.
Okay.
It's done the movement
Yeah.
and it's switched
Yeah.
off. But the hip
Right.
flexor won't do that. So
Right.
that's
Okay.
one thing that
Yeah.
the core does.
Yeah.
The other
Okay.
thing is when I jump to my side so
Hmm.
that I don't fall.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just show you this one as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So if I'm jumping to the side, so suppose I'm doing this, right?
Right.
So
Right.
my body weight or my center of mass, which usually sits
Yeah.
here, when I'm standing, it's
Yeah.
here. So when
Yeah.
I'm jumping, it's
Yeah.
shifted. It's
Correct.
gone that way.
Correct.
So there is a force that's pulling me in that direction. To
Right.
stop me
Right.
from falling, something
Hmm.
from this direction has to pull me back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not necessarily pull you back, but to hold you there, it has to
But
be
to hold you
active.
there. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you imagine
Hmm.
someone who tucks in their stomach to do
Hmm.
this,
Hmm.
that's not going to help because the force you need is from here.
It's on the side. True.
Huh. So
Yeah.
the core is not about tucking in the stomach. It won't help you in everything.
Yeah.
So this is another reason to maintain your body mass over your base of
Correct.
support, which is your
Correct.
feet. The
Right.
core helps with that.
Okay.
So these
Right.
are some of the things
Okay.
that the core is helpful for and why
Helpful.
there's a lot of awareness of it. The only
Hmm.
thing is the way that it's like activated. People don't know
Hmm.
that when you do this, it should not be tuck your tummy in. It should be the other way.
Other way around.
So these are the
Yeah.
things that are not there.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
So core stability is something that all of us have to develop, and that just does not mean doing crunches and just focusing on the front part of the thing, but everything around it. So that also includes the glutes as well. So it's so sensible when you said that, because it's about what do you say? It's like every part of your body has to sort of work in conjunction with each other.
Mm,
And if so,
mm.
when you say core, strengthening the core, it just doesn't mean, get doing those ab crunches and all of that. And
Yeah,
it would also mean working on your glutes, working on your obliques,
yeah,
and then working on the back as well. So all of that
yeah,
put together is what we have to focus
yeah.
on while we're core training.
I also add, just when we say working on,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not doing like planks and things. A really
Mm-hmm.
important exercise we should probably all get into the habit of doing is called motor patterning exercises. So motor
Okay.
patterning is getting your brain to know which muscle should fire first, because all of the movements
Okay.
essentially come from here first. So
Correct.
no matter how much you strengthen your muscles, if
Hmm.
that pathway in which to create the movement is not there, then it
Correct.
doesn't matter
Oh
how
yeah.
much you
Yeah.
strengthen it, right?
Yeah.
So, for
True.
example, I often use the example of a stroke patient. Stroke patient bringing their fork to their mouth, they'll often do
Correct.
like this. So we go,
Right.
okay, we want to inhibit this movement and strengthen in this
Correct.
direction, so it'll come to their mouth. So you strengthen in this direction and it goes the other way,
Ah, right.
right?
Right.
The reason
Right.
is because that pathway has not registered
Hmm.
in the brain.
Yeah.
So no matter
Yeah. You
how
just know
much you
how to move it, but
strengthen,
you don't know where to move it to, right? Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
connection is not there. So no matter how much you strengthen in that direction, how do you get that connection back, the pathway back?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
with core
Yeah.
exercises, I mean, it's not to say you should not do a plank. You should do a plank to
Mm-hmm.
strengthen, but you
Mm-hmm.
should do first which muscle needs to fire. So you pick a movement, whether it's Aramandi or Nataradu, you do it laying down like we did before. You do,
Hmm.
sorry, we did the standing one before with Aramandi.
Hmm.
You can actually do it
Hmm.
laying down also and feeling which part of the core you want to be active. So feeling for your
Ah,
glutes,
okay.
feeling,
Okay.
and just saying whether you can get closing your eyes and just saying if you can get the muscle to activate first. So part practice.
Right. Right.
Because
Okay.
however much you do your plank, it has to
Yeah.
have some meaning in your dance.
Exactly, exactly. It has to
So
reflect.
you
So
need
you're saying,
to
lie down on
break
your
it.
back and then
Hmm.
try the same, what we tried with holding the hip flexor and the external rotator. That's what it is, right? Yeah,
Yes, external
external
rotators. Yeah.
rotator. Yeah.
Yeah.
We held that and tried to move our feet out so we understand
Yeah.
what our turnout is. But you're saying do the same thing, lying down on your back. So you
Yeah.
are not just conditioned to what you're doing when you're standing, but also your brain sort of understands what to fire
Well,
first.
it's easier to do when you're laying down
Yeah.
than
Correct.
standing because so much
Okay.
like you've got the force of gravity acting so strongly when you're standing up. So if you
Right.
lay
And also
down,
you're
it'll be easier.
preconditioned because you're so conditioned to doing it a
Hmm.
certain way. So that kicks over what you're trying to achieve. So okay. So laying
Yeah.
down and
So you
practicing
go
the
you
same.
go lay down first, and then you
Okay.
lay down against a wall. So that wall becomes your
Mm.
floor when you're dancing. Like when you're upright, you're
Ah,
dancing
okay.
on the floor. But if you do it
Mm.
laying down, do it against a wall, so you still get that
Mm.
feedback of the ground. But now
Got
you're
it.
starting to put those muscles into how you would actually use it in dance. But it's in an
Right.
easier position first.
Right. Right. Okay.
So simultaneously, you strengthen like your planks and whatever, you do that.
Correct. Yeah.
But this
So
is
again, it's a
important to start
holistic
with.
thing that we're looking at,
Mm,
part by part, as you said. Fix it up one by one, and then okay, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, well, that's a lot to work on core stability then for all of us. So, and
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And here's another thing that I want to ask about, which is sort of linked with alignment that we spoke about earlier. But many of us dancers, especially soloists and perhaps people who train on their own, use mirrors to work on their practice. Mm,
Yeah,
so to me, I think it's an important tool in understanding alignment because I know how much is my Natya Ramba in the straight line or is my Ramandi as much as it needs to be. So I think mirror is a very important tool for dancers. So what are your viewpoints on the mirror, and is it essential? Is it not essential? Is it something we need to keep in use while we are trying to fix our alignment, etc.? So if you can speak about
it's
the mirror.
very important because
Okay,
you're, like you said, you're setting in your mind how you want something to look. So it's
correct,
definitely really important. Um,
correct.
and athletes use mirrors too to correct their
Mm-hmm.
techniques and correct their
Hmm.
movements. But at
Hmm.
the end of the day, a mirror is just that. It's a tool. It should
Hmm.
not take over, or you should not become obsessed with the mirrors or really rely
Hmm.
on the mirrors. And
Hmm.
athletes
Hmm.
are good at recognizing that their game environment is not with a mirror. right? So they're very good at recognizing that. And we also know that when our game environment, which is like on stage or
On
whatever, we don't
stage.
have a mirror. But
Correct.
I think somewhere we tend to rely on it, kind of get obsessed over the mirrors a little too
Correct.
much, and then we don't use
Correct.
it in that manner. We don't use it as a tool.
Correct. Correct.
So what happens here then is this thing called proprioception in the body or in the
Hmm.
brain, which is
Hmm.
your awareness of your awareness
Hmm.
of what your limbs are doing in the space around you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so if I hold my hand out in Natyaramba, it's like that stretch is being
Hmm.
detected by the brain as a stretch. And it's like, okay,
Hmm.
the hand is stretched out here. So I
Hmm.
can set myself in the mirror and say, see, my hands are dropping, so I want it to be here. But if I
Hmm.
keep using a mirror to do that,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
you'll always rely on the mirror to correct you because you'll never
Right.
challenge your proprioception. So along
So
with this, the
what
reason is,
exactly is proprioception? If you can just, break down that word for us before we proceed.
yep. So it's basically like the receptors that are sitting in your joints and your muscles are sending signals to your brain.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay. And
Okay.
that signal is telling me whether my hand is outstretched or whether my hand is to the side or whether I'm tilting this way or whether my hand is like
Okay.
this. It gives me all of
Okay.
that information about what I'm
Right.
doing. So even
Right.
if I have to close my eyes and do this, I know
Yeah.
my fingers are in Tripatakam. I don't
Correct.
have to see it. The body
Correct.
is
Correct.
aware because the body
Yeah.
creates a map. It's called body
Right.
schema. Sorry, the
Okay.
mind creates a map of the body.
Called. Okay. Okay.
Body schema. So
Yeah.
whatever movements I do, the brain detects and it registers as a map. Okay, she started with Natya Ramba. So for example, Allaripo, she started like this,
Ah.
then she brought her hands up into Anjali, and then
Right.
she bent, and then so the
Yeah.
brain keeps adapting its body schema as we go
Right.
through a choreography. Okay,
Right.
so when you
Right.
use a mirror and you set yourself, you set this is Natya Ramba,
Hmm.
you should
Hmm.
actually change direction, turn away from the mirror. So now you
Hmm.
know where you want it to be.
Hmm.
Turn away
Hmm.
from the mirror, close your eyes and try and do it.
Ah.
So
Okay.
it's not even because then what happens is your proprioception skill gets stronger. So your body
Hmm.
schema has to force itself to figure out where you are in space.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
when you're performing, you don't
Hmm.
have a mirror. Your body
Absolutely.
should know
Yeah.
where the hand
Where
should
it
go,
has to go. Correct.
where it has
Correct.
to go.
Likewise with the
And
diagonal alignments also,
correct.
all of that.
Yeah.
Because especially what I see is, I've heard of this to be a problem that people face. Is that,
Mhm.
when they see the mirror into, the fourth Natadavuda, especially where the diagonals are concerned, they do it so beautifully. And then when they do it on stage, one hand is up, one hand is down, and
Mm.
it's not
Yeah.
in that diagonal line that they want it to be. So yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Because I think if you do
Mm,
in front of a mirror repeated times, that it
mm,
becomes ingrained. That's not how
mm.
proprioception
That's not
works.
true.
And that's
Yeah,
why I
yeah.
said turn away, but also close your eyes. So
Mm,
it's because what happens is the body schema takes information from the eyes, whether it's the mirror
right.
or, like, for example, I have my veena here. If I want to do some other one, I want to put my hand there. Without subconsciously, the eyes take in that information and tells me, put your hand in line with that veena, right?
Correct. Correct.
Even if
Correct.
I'm not
Correct.
looking at the mirror.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what happens is we take subconscious cues from our environment. Whereas if
Correct.
you close your eyes, you're really left with just your body to figure out where you should
Figure it
go.
out. True. True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
this other concept called the homunculus, which is a really
Okay.
interesting concept. If you close your
Okay.
eyes, this actually builds and gets stronger. So I'll just show
Hmm.
you a picture of it first. So this is the
Mm-hmm.
homunculus. Okay. So I don't know
Hmm.
what word it is. It's supposed to mean like some ugly man or large man or something like that. So
Okay.
basically, what this is
Uh-huh.
the brain's representation of how the body looks. Okay, so
Okay.
our brain thinks that this is how your body looks. And the
Really?
reason, so you can see, yeah, so
Okay.
our hands are not this large actually,
Yeah.
right?
True.
It's not,
True.
it
True.
doesn't reflect how we look.
True.
The reason the
True.
brain thinks that we're this big, our hands are
Hmm.
this big, is because we use our hands so much. In everyday
Hmm.
life, it's the most
Mm-hmm.
important part. We do everything with our
Hmm.
hands. So
Correct.
most of the brain's attention in terms of
Yeah.
our body goes to the hands
Correct. Correct.
and the feet. The knees, the
Okay.
thighs, and everything else, we don't use it like
Yeah. Yeah.
as much as our hands, right?
As
It
our
never
hands.
comes
That's
in
so true.
contact with
So
anything.
true. So
So
true.
you can kind of infer from this that a dancer's homunculus can be different.
Hmm.
So perhaps for a dancer, the hands are large, but maybe the feet are also equally large because we use it so
Equally large.
much,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you use a mirror, to try and set your corrections and you rely on the mirror, you can never develop what you want. This can change.
Okay.
So if I put my hand out and I want more awareness to my shoulder, I want my homunculus to register this as the most important part
Okay.
for my
Okay.
Natya Ranga. But if I do it in front of a mirror, it's not going to happen. But if I close
Yeah.
my eyes and let the body schema take over, the brain
Right.
attends to this area. The brain attends to the elbow. So then what happens is the homunculus gets changed. So a
Yeah.
dancer's homunculus can keep changing based on what you want to correct.
Right. Right. Right.
So it's important
Right.
to use the mirror just to set your corrections, but then
Correct.
turn
But
away
turn
from it.
away and close your eyes. Yeah.
Close your eyes and try the entire dance with your eyes closed. Obviously, the eyes are supposed to give you information about safety. That's all you should be doing. The reason the body
Correct.
schema takes information about the environment is if there's a ditch on
So that
stage,
you
you
don't
need
go
to
bang
know to
into
go.
something. Yeah.
You don't go
Yeah.
bang
Or
into
you don't
something, you
fall
go
off the
around
stage.
it.
Right. Right. Right.
Correct.
Right.
It should
Yeah.
not be
Yeah.
saying, okay, there's a veena there, so just set yourself there, or it should not tell you like
Correct.
information like that.
Correct.
So
Correct.
become one with your body, and that's why a lot
Body. Oh,
of
so beautiful. Mm.
forms of Tai Chi,
Mm-hmm.
actually they do with their eyes closed. Certain forms of Tai
Mm-hmm.
Chi, and they talk about
Mm-hmm.
energy flow is more, and
Mm.
attentiveness is more. So
Mm.
there's that aspect as well. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. Oh, this is a beautiful concept, and it's such a again a revelation for me also to because I see on one hand, yes, we are relying on the mirror to help us identify, how much should be. But then we also know that, say, what I do is, say, a week before a performance, I would turn away
Mm,
from the mirror entirely and do the whole
mm.
thing against the mirror because otherwise you're so used to seeing something in front of you. And then there's
Yeah,
this black space on stage, and then you just don't. Sometimes
go
it's just
blank.
not the same.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's just different. So what I do usually is I turn
Mm,
away from the mirror for the week before the performance and just,
mm,
use that. But this is so meaningful about closing your eyes and just letting you absorb what your body can do, or understanding where the energy flow is. I think
mm.
it's going to be something that I'm going to try. Of course, we'll probably
Okay.
have to limit our space so that we don't go bang into things, as you said.
Yeah,
But maybe just an adavu, because
just
say
another,
for an
yeah.
adavu, it's very well within that space that you define
Mm,
for yourself, unless it's a
exactly.
adavu or rangakramana or something. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think this is something that I'm also going to probably go back and try and see
yeah,
how
good.
it helps me change, or rather realize how energy flows. And I hope
Mm.
all of you will do it as well. If you do let us know. And if you, yeah. So, okay, I have just one last question, after which we'll open the question out to the audience. We have about another, I think, 25 minutes odd. So, but this is again, I think, a sort of recap of all that we've spoken. And this is about the common injury points in a dancer's body, especially, let's not just say Bharatanatyam, because we know Bharatanatyam is largely the knees and the back. But,
Mm,
generally, what are the injury points that we need to, be on the lookout for? Ankle, as you mentioned, is something that people
mm.
battle with as well. So if you
Yeah.
can just, summarize that for us, and then if there's anything else you want to add about
Mhm.
this, and then we can open the question back.
Yeah. So by far, like you said, the
Mm,
knees is the
mm,
biggest, and the
mm,
biggest issue is around the alignment, the
mm,
rotational forces that are going through. It's like a
mm,
wear and
mm.
tear kind of situation. So it doesn't
Correct,
happen immediately. Very rarely do we do something like, sit on your knees and fracture it. Like that kind of doesn't happen
correct,
too often,
correct,
but it's a
correct.
wear and tear injury. So you
Over
keep
time,
doing it
yeah.
over time, things happen. So there's this
Mm,
thing called
mm,
patellofemoral syndrome, which is
mm-hmm,
the most common in dances. And it's not just Indian classical, it's any dance,
mm,
jazz, ballet, tap,
mm-hmm, mm,
flamenco, all of these,
mm-hmm.
like patellofemoral syndrome, which is basically the way that the
The
kneecap
patella,
sits
yeah,
on the,
yeah,
so how it sits. So
yeah.
you've got your thigh bone, you've got your lower leg, and your
Right,
patella sits in the center, right? So
correct,
there's
correct.
there's like a groove at the back of the patella, and
Mm,
it fits into the thigh bone like a puzzle almost.
mm.
So
Okay,
every time you bend your knee, it's not just a
okay,
straight bending and straightening. It's a
okay.
rotational bending and straightening. So there's a little bit
Right,
of rotational force that happens. So the patella
right.
moves with it. So
Mm,
we spoke about all the alignment issues that can go wrong with your knees coming forward, collapsing
mm,
forward. So if
mm,
it does that, then you can
mm.
imagine that the patella also can't keep up,
Right.
right? So
Mm,
it's like almost left behind.
Okay.
So that's patellofemoral syndrome. So usually from alignment issues,
Yeah.
from the feet. Very rarely are any knee problems from the knee itself. It's usually from the
Okay.
feet. Yeah, from the
Okay.
feet
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
from the hips.
Hmm.
And so, because if you think about, I have one image, really good image here. I'll show you
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
So if you look at this, the issue coming from the turnout, and we talked about neutral pelvis, the core head to the neutral pelvis, right? So
Right.
if you
Right.
imagine this is what normal should look like. Level pelvis, turnout
Uh-huh.
muscles are active, and the knee is where the toe, the second toe is,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
So now
Ah.
your foot has turned collapsed inwards.
Okay.
So
Correct.
now this
Correct.
lower leg bone has also collapsed inwards. Now,
Right.
if you think of the problem at the hip, is that
Correct.
she has dropped it. So there's like
Yeah.
this drop of the pelvis because that glute med is not active,
Right. Right.
right? She's standing on one
Yeah.
leg. Any single stance, glute med has to be active, otherwise this happens.
Right.
So when
Right.
this happens, you can't sit in Aramandi and expect your turnout muscles to work. So
Hmm.
that bone is also rotated inwards. So now you have
Hmm.
this very disgusting looking angle almost.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it looks
Yeah.
like very serious. So
Correct.
this is where the patella cannot keep up and it gets
Yeah.
excessive force going through it. So see how
Okay.
it's a knee pain, but it's coming from
Right.
somewhere else.
Somewhere else. True. Yeah.
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 So this is one of the issues. And as
Hmm.
a result of which, the muscle which we call the VMO, which is a quads muscle, a certain part of the thigh muscle, is
Hmm.
supposed to pull the patella in place and keep it there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
over time, you keep doing the wrong alignments, wrong forces are
Yeah.
going through, that side gets weaker.
Right.
So the patella moves laterally and it has a potential to sublux, that means move completely out of place.
Okay.
So what people do is a scary thing, I know, but what people do is they tend to work on the strength of their VMO, strengthening their quads, doing lots of
Okay.
squats.
Hmm.
Again, that's part of it, but where did the
Hmm.
issue come from? It came from alignment. So you need to go
Correct.
right back to the start. You need to do your motor patterning again,
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
along with the strengthening. So
Yeah, that's true because
that's
a lot
important.
of times I've also heard that if you want your knees to be able to bear that weight, you have to strengthen your
Mm.
quads, your hams, and your calves, the muscles that surround it. And this
Surrounded,
is this
correct.
is what yeah this is and this is all I've been thinking about. Of course, it has helped to a certain extent, but what you said about how much is the optimal alignment and getting
Mm.
back to that is something that even I've not paid attention to.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, yeah.
That's okay. So the other thing is,
Mm.
you have like something like a core in your neck also. So another common
Okay.
injury point for dancers is actually neck because there's so much tension. So
Right.
for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah. And does
what's
the
another
shoulder
way?
thing also get associated with that? A lot of people have shoulder
Yeah,
issues and stuff, right? That's
yeah,
part of this. Okay.
definitely.
Hmm.
So it's a
Hmm.
whole thing. But just
Hmm.
trying to think of an example of another like ta hatha jam tarita.
Correct.
Uh, so like this can happen where
Yeah.
you're stressing your neck to go instead of your
Neck.
hand and your
Ah.
body going, the neck could go
Right.
like
Neck
that,
is. Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Hmm.
that's a common injury point because over time, if you keep doing the wrong thing, then you're going to stress all of your joints around your neck, and your
Hmm.
neck is more
Hmm.
sensitive, and that can cause headaches.
Oh. Okay.
Headaches that are coming from neck,
Okay.
musculoskeletal issues can
Okay.
occur. Now, in your neck, you have this thing called your deep neck flexor, which is like the core
Okay.
of the neck.
Of the
It's
neck.
a
Right.
deep stabilizing muscle of the neck.
Okay.
So it's important that when you're doing your Tahata Jamta, it's your body that's moving, but your neck
Right.
should not be like this
The
or
yeah,
like
outward. Correct.
tensed,
Correct.
but it should be in
Correct.
its neutral position, and
Hmm.
you have to turn on your DNF, your deep
Hmm.
neck flexor. So how you do that
Hmm.
is like you're almost like you're tucking your chin in.
Pushing it back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's
Hmm.
also not like this, but it's just a
Correct.
tuck, gentle tuck, and then you do your other.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
another common injury point.
Right.
But I think with all of these, it's just, I think if I wanted to say, take home message, don't
Hmm.
just think of strengthening exercises. See how you
Yeah.
can put it into your practice. If you're doing Tahata Jamtarita and you're doing just neck strengthening exercise, you're not going to understand how it works in the other way.
Right.
You have to
Right.
put it into it. So you need to go right back to the beginning and start your
Yeah.
motor patterning
And
exercise.
as you indicated in the beginning, aside
Mm.
from the practice time, we got to invest some time
Mm.
in working on these parts.
Yeah.
Whether it's, because generally practice time comprises dancing and the previous warm up, cool down, and perhaps for some people, just a certain form of workout, either yoga or whatever, Pilates or something.
Mm.
But I think we'll have to, for a while at least, I'm going to do this at least, invest
Mm.
probably an hour a day, kind of trying to understand where movement originates, where energy originates, looking
Mm.
away from the mirror and all of that. And also this whole alignment thing, which
Mm.
I know for a fact that I've been really messing with. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yes,
as long as you go back and you see which muscle is
mm,
firing, is it firing
mm,
at the right time, all that sort of stuff, um,
right,
you can then strengthen and you'll be like a more efficient dancer rather than doing too
so
much time on one thing and doing it like an
correct,
athlete or like a
correct, correct,
personal trainer would do. You're a dancer, so
correct,
you do it in a dance way, how to put it back into your dance.
right. So this
Mm.
suddenly brought me to one last thing that I want to ask you about, which is repetitive stress. You did mention about muscle tearing every day that you work out
Mm.
and then repairing back and stuff. So is there an optimal time that we should work on? Because I know that a lot of professional dancers dance, say 2-3 hours a day minimum, and continue to do it for like 5 days a week or 6 days a week.
Mm.
The same intensity. It's not even like, one day is heavy, next day is light, so on. So
Mm.
is there a what is optimal, how much we should at least aim to do? I know it's not easy for everyone to follow that, but if there's something
Mm.
that you think is optimal, if we can at least a soloist, if we can try,
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
So it shouldn't be like, for example, athletes have what they call off-season time. So
hmm
that's their resting, recovering,
which
rehabilitating
is our
time.
which is the time for all of us right now, by the way, off season for us
Exactly.
dancers, because
Because
we're all at home, we
otherwise
don't
we
have
don't get
shows.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, we
because
never
otherwise
get
you
it.
don't
Yeah,
get it. And
so
that's
true.
important. So
Hmm.
we are actually no different to athletes. Our game is
hmm
dance. That's the only difference.
right.
So we need to have a period of off season. So that's 3 or 4 weeks is really important because that's when you can
Right.
work on things like your motor planning exercise and your
Correct.
core. Use that time
Correct.
to do that. It doesn't have to be heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms
Correct.
of practice and training, you don't want to be doing like 5 hours every single day.
Hmm.
So you want to be finding your capacity, pushing
Hmm.
past your capacity 2 times in a
A
week,
week. Hmm.
and then have 2 days where you're resting, one after the other, like immediately one after the other.
Okay, so
So you
two
have two
continuous
days
days
of
of rest. Say, assume
two
something like a
continuous days
Saturday,
of
Sunday
rest.
rest, and a Monday to
Yeah,
Friday is you're working out
yeah.
time.
And
Okay,
then one day a week, you want to have something that's at your level of like whatever your
okay,
stamina or whatever it is. You want to be working
okay.
out at that level because only
Uh-huh.
then you have that what we spoke about before, where the tissue damage or not the micro tears that happen.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It happens and then has time to heal. If you
Right.
keep pushing at 5 hours every single day, that's injury.
Mm.
That can lead to
Right.
injury.
Right.
So altering your load is really important.
Correct.
And that's the only way that you'll actually get better as well. So if you think of HIIT training, for example,
Yeah. Yeah.
HIIT training, they work off the concept of work really hard and then completely rest
And then
for a
rest
few.
for
And
yeah,
then,
15,
like,
10 seconds. What's
yeah,
that? 15 seconds of rest and 45 seconds of workout.
yeah,
That's usually what we
yeah.
do.
So
Yeah.
it's similar
Mm.
to the days of your training as well.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Mm.
so you're saying an ideal thing to do would be rest 2 days completely, say like a Saturday, Sunday, or 2 days off. And then
Mm.
in the 5 days, 2 days operate at a higher than what
Higher
your
level.
level is. One day
Yeah,
operate at what your level is, and
levels.
2 days a little lighter than
Yeah,
what your level is. Beautiful. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can
Makes sense.
have an off season time, if it's possible as well, to
Which
rehab.
is say approximately 1 month a year, 3 to 4 weeks a year or
3 to 4
something is what
weeks,
you're
yeah.
saying. Yeah. This is so
Mm.
Corona is forcing it on all of us any which way.
Yeah.
And
But otherwise, we
yeah,
don't
I think
take it. It's important.
we really don't. Yeah.
Mm.
This is
Yeah.
this is something that I think will help us also. I'm going to open the comments out now for questions. We have about 15 minutes, so we'll take a few questions and then we'll yeah. Okay, shoot away. But really, Sneha, I think you've really, really given us some amazing insights that not many of us would have even known or even read about, because we do read a lot. We do,
Mm.
look for a lot of fitness related, but fitness is one aspect, but understanding anatomy, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So Sukriti is asking, could you please explain Natya Rambam as well? Um,
Natyaramam in what
when you
sense?
say, yeah, in what sense? Could you explain that? And then could you show us? Okay, okay, there are a lot of questions. Okay. Okay, this is a nice one. What is the warning point of an injury, of a back injury for dancers?
So, not just for back injury, for most injuries, actually, a warning point would be when you finished your practice and several
Mm-hmm.
hours later, the pain continues.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important. Also,
Mm-hmm.
if you've had a really hard practice and then your back is hurting, but it's settling, and then you go to sleep and it wakes you up. So, pain that wakes you up at night is a warning
Right,
point as well.
right.
So
Okay,
this is
okay.
true for any joint, but even for the back, which is, when you're completely in rest, that's when
Mm,
the pain starts, usually in the back. So
mm,
definitely like resting pain, sharp pain, anything with like pins and needles, tingling,
mm,
numbness, those sorts of
mm.
things at the back is a warning point as well.
Okay, okay. What about, sort of pain that occurs only when, there's a certain movement involved and not otherwise? This is something I wanted to
Yeah,
ask as
so
well. Where it's, only a certain, say, say, for example, this is my hand. Only at this
mm,
point of moving it, it hurts, but after moving
mm,
it doesn't hurt. And then
mm,
likewise, while coming back at this point, it hurts and then it's fine. So what
yeah.
does that sort of indicate?
So usually it's the way that you're using the muscle, which muscle's firing, and the
Mm-hmm.
timing that the muscles are firing, but also depending, I don't know which joint you're talking about, but
Mm,
usually, so for example, in Natyaramba position, gravity is acting the strongest because our arm is
mm,
long.
mm,
So if you want to bring your hand like say from here to here and you're working on this
mm,
range, right? So here
mm,
it's
mm,
pain, it's like almost pain free. Then you get to here and it's
mm,
like gravity acting strongly and your muscle's not strong enough to oppose the force of gravity,
mm, 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 mm,
right? So the pain comes here, but then as you come
mm.
down, it's okay. So that painful arc is
Okay.
usually because either the muscle and the way that it's firing, or if it's a long lever, then gravity
Yeah.
acting the strongest and your muscle is not ready to oppose that force.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of people have asked about, about the hip flexors.
Hmm.
Um, you know, t- uh,
They're all moving
Probably just
away so
tips to,
fast.
yeah, I know because there's so many of them. So hip flexors is something that I saw like 3, 4 times.
Hmm.
Could you give us tips to work on the hip flexor for a lot of fitness related? But fitness is one aspect, but understanding anatomy, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So Sukriti is asking, could you please explain Natya Rambam as well? Um,
Natyaramam in what
when you
sense?
say, yeah, in what sense? Could you explain that? And then could you show us? Okay, okay, there are a lot of questions. Okay. Okay, this is a nice one. What is the warning point of an injury, of a back injury for dancers?
So, not just for back injury, for most injuries, actually, a warning point would be when you finished your practice and several
Mm-hmm.
hours later, the pain continues.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important. Also,
Mm-hmm.
if you've had a really hard practice and then your back is hurting, but it's settling, and then you go to sleep and it wakes you up. So, pain that wakes you up at night is a warning
Right,
point as well.
right.
So
Okay,
this is
okay.
true for any joint, but even for the back, which is, when you're completely in rest, that's when
Mm,
the pain starts, usually in the back. So
mm,
definitely like resting pain, sharp pain, anything with like pins and needles, tingling,
mm,
numbness, those sorts of
mm.
things at the back is a warning point as well.
Okay, okay. What about, sort of pain that occurs only when, there's a certain movement involved and not otherwise? This is something I wanted to
Yeah,
ask as
so
well. Where it's, only a certain, say, say, for example, this is my hand. Only at this
mm,
point of moving it, it hurts, but after moving
mm,
it doesn't hurt. And then
mm,
likewise, while coming back at this point, it hurts and then it's fine. So what
yeah.
does that sort of indicate?
So usually it's the way that you're using the muscle, which muscle's firing, and the
Mm-hmm.
timing that the muscles are firing, but also depending, I don't know which joint you're talking about, but
Mm,
usually, so for example, in Natyaramba position, gravity is acting the strongest because our arm is
mm,
long.
mm,
So if you want to bring your hand like say from here to here and you're working on this
mm,
range, right? So here
mm,
it's
mm,
pain, it's like almost pain free. Then you get to here and it's
Mm.
like gravity acting strongly, and your muscle's not strong enough to oppose the force of gravity,
Mm. Mm.
right? So the pain comes here, but then as you come
Mm.
down, it's okay. So that painful arc is
Okay.
usually because either the muscle and the way that it's firing, or if it's a long lever, then gravity
Yeah.
acting the strongest, and your muscle is not ready to oppose that force.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of people have asked about, about the hip flexors.
Hmm.
Um, you know, t- uh,
They're all moving
Probably just
away so
tips to,
fast.
yeah, I know because there's so many of them. So hip flexors is something that I saw like 3, 4 times.
Hmm.
Could you give us tips to work on the hip flexors, or could you, yeah, how to work more on our hip external rotators? Yeah. So just maybe something about how to, yeah, work on the hip rotators, hip flexors, or the external rotators.
Yeah, so if it means like exercises or how to work on it in dance, if you're wanting to do like hip exercises, there's already so
Mm-hmm.
many out there. But in terms
Mm-hmm.
of putting it back into dance, so I can
Mm.
show you the motor planning exercises if you want, how it would look.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a bit of an
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're working on your Nataraja pose, let's just say, and that's your hip flexor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if I lay down completely,
Right, yeah,
it'll
yeah.
look like this. Are you able
Okay.
to see?
Yes, yes, I can
Yeah.
see you. Yes.
So
In
then
case people
I'll
are
turn.
finding an issue with the comments there, you can just come back to this video a little later once it's on the stories and see it. But yeah, Sneha, you can show us that. Yeah.
Yeah, so turning out the feet, and then I'm
Mm.
trying to work on Nataraja. So I put my hand here on my hip
Mm-hmm.
flexor, and all
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing is just this rotational movement here until I can feel this. This is part
Okay.
practice of the movement.
Okay.
Then
Okay.
eventually I'll go further,
Yeah.
making sure that
Yeah.
this is not active, but the
Okay.
core is active around here. So this is
Okay.
part practice, and then eventually can I turn out my muscle, my neck, while
Mm.
keeping the hip flexor active. So it's all actually part practice. So even though we're
Right.
saying we're training the hip flexor, you're breaking
Mm.
up the movement,
Mm.
and the whole way through you're making sure the hip is active and not your
Mm-hmm.
glutes or anything else. But if you're
Right.
wanting to strengthen like your hip flexors and things, there's already
Yeah.
so many exercises and things out
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Um,
We just have to find it on YouTube perhaps. Okay, for exercises. But this part practice is something I think we have to really, uh, think about. Okay. Mm, okay. Oh God, there are quite a bit of questions, and I'm just a second.
was there a
Yeah.
question on the
Could
core exercises?
core.
I thought I
Yeah, I
saw
think it's
something.
it's gone up there. Okay. How about we take this? Could you throw some light on stress fracture? How to identify a stress fracture from repeated shin splints, and how to strengthen the shins? Okay, you can probably answer
Hmm.
that in part.
How to
Yeah,
strengthen the shin.
yeah.
So, firstly, stress fracture is like
Mm,
a repair, like a wear and tear kind of trauma. So, with
mm,
stress fractures, what happens is like it's really hard to detect on X-rays,
mm-hmm,
for example.
mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
when you have a stress fracture, the biggest thing is your inability to weight bear. So, put
Mm,
weight through that leg,
correct.
right? That's the biggest giveaway. Apart from
Yeah.
that, you can have swelling and all that sort of stuff. But shin
Mm,
splint is a different thing completely, unless you're talking about the same bone. Shin
mm,
splint is like a compressive kind of pain that's happening at the shin. So I'm not sure in
mm,
what like where they're
mm.
asking. Could you put some
Okay.
stress fracture? How to identify stress? So how to identify a stress fracture is your weight bearing ability. Usually it's
Mm,
that's the biggest giveaway. And then
mm.
shin splint
Okay.
is like a compressive pain, like
Yeah.
pulling, compressive, cramping kind of pain.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So you can
Yeah.
tell me which one.
Okay. So there's one more that I'm just finding this interesting. For a dancer who has flat foot by birth, which I think many
Hmm.
dancers have,
Hmm.
weight um, weight balance on the feet is always a challenge. So what do you suggest in such a case?
Yeah. So this is where when people are anatomically different,
Mm,
it's difficult to say that this is how
yeah.
Mandi
How
should
you do
look.
it.
This
Correct.
is makes
Correct.
harder on people. So
Correct.
with flat foot, you're with the dynamic
Mm,
arches which I spoke about, one of them, the inner one, is flat, it's rolled inwards. So there's a natural tendency for the knees to come forward and the foot to collapse inwards. So what I said before about making sure that the arch is always engaged. So if your flat foot is like this, so every time you strike, making sure that you engage the muscles in here, the bottom of the foot, so you can create something like this. So you can even part practice that. So it will not change the shape of your foot, but you can put it so every time you jump and land, for example, you activate so your foot is like this.
Right.
So you can, it's almost like a cheat way of doing it, but it's not going to
Creating
fix your flat
that
foot.
curve.
Huh.
Yeah.
And even like as you're sitting and watching TV or something, trying to create that curve is something that you
curve.
can
Right.
practice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So Sukriti clarified about the Natya Ramba, just the way that you spoke about getting into Aramandi by, understanding where your hip flexor is and the rotator is. Can you describe the same for the Natya Ramba as well?
Yeah, sure. So Natya Ramba, the biggest issue people have is usually this muscle here, the upper traps, that it's usually overactive. Okay. So usually what we tell people to do is for not to achieve this, you want this to be relaxed. But if you relax this, your arms will drop. That's kind of the connection that happens. So what you should be doing is called scapular setting. So scapular refers to this, the back of your shoulder or the back. And what you do is it's like you gently tuck it in. So you're squeezing your shoulder blades together.
Right.
So as you lift your arm, focus on, like, this is where a mirror is really good, so you can correct the movement, so you don't do this, but you squeeze first and then lift up the arm. Squeeze at the back and then lift up and place.
And then lift up.
Yeah, squeeze.
Okay, got it.
So this is something that you can do for Natya Ramba because that will create tension here otherwise.
Right.
And people will always try and keep it like this. But remember we said like, so you don't want to be doing that. You want to be using your scapula, which sets where your arm is going to be. And you want to be doing like that.
Right. So this is something that I wanted to ask you as well, but I forgot. But it's nice that someone brought it up, which is about, people taking that time to recover. Say, for whatever reason, if there's a break from dancing, whether it's an injury or otherwise, or family, or whatever reason, when you're getting back to dancing, I'm sure it has to be a very slow and steady way. So what are your uh, probably your insights on getting back to dancing after a long break?
So getting back to your capacity would have definitely come down. So firstly, identifying where your capacity is at. Dancing is something that requires endurance, energy. So making sure you're working on your stamina to start with. Right. So don't, like, whichever, if it's say after a break or after an injury or whatever, you're coming back to dance, don't go and start something that's about that joint immediately. Right?
Correct.
So start with another part. It's almost like weight training.
You're saying if you have an ankle injury, try not to start with Kudita method. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, don't do Kudita method and don't do Tattadavu also. Start with something else. Like just do the hands of an adavu
or something.
Circle adavu you can do. Yeah, something soft. So always go for something soft first to find out where you're at. And at the same time, you want to be continuing doing your rehab workout or whatever, so that you're strengthening the muscles that need to be strengthened. Now, it's really important to also note that you don't want to completely like avoid using that muscle or that joint because then you go backwards. You want to be using it in the way. So like how we spoke about 1 day a week we do above our practice, above our level, 1 day a week we take rest. So you can also alter. 1 day I'm gonna try this adavu, but I'm gonna try only first speed, for example.
Correct.
So doing things like that is really important to gradually build yourself up.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're okay because we just have about 3 minutes before I have to end this one as well. But if you guys have any doubts, you can definitely consult with Sneha. She's and please read her blog. She writes for Nartaki as well. And her page Bharat Anatomy is is something it's such a revelation, and we're going to wait to read a lot more from you, Sneha, about that. So yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think we'll stop with questions now because, as I said, we'll have to end this live in just about a minute or two, just to have it stored again. So I want to say, Sneha, thank you so much for doing this for us. It's really, really opened up a lot of uh, I, I won't say, I mean, it's probably not solved all our questions, but at least you've initiated us into, I mean, it's only what we can do in 2 hours, but you've really initiated
Mhm.
us into understanding our body better, understanding the anatomy of our body better. And of course, we can go back, read so much more. And I think 2 hours was just not enough with you, but thank you so much for doing this for
Thank
us.
you. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for
I'm
joining
really
us. And
happy.
yeah, yeah, sorry,
So I
yeah.
was going to say that I'm really happy that you've given me, I was able to come and share on Sangati, which is like amazing for me. So thank you so much for
No,
giving me
thank
this
you. Thank you so
platform.
much.